Design Huddle. We got an interesting episode. I was telling Mustafa I had this cool idea. My wife and I have been doing a lot of home design. You know, it was COVID, pandemic. We were all sitting at home looking at our houses. A lot of people naturally were like wanting to upgrade. We were one of those families. We did a ton of upgrades. So my two worlds are colliding. I am like, a UX designer by profession. I like interior home design as a hobby. So what I found was interesting is I find a lot of parallels between home trend designs and like web design. And a lot of people like the metaphor of when you build a website, it's similar to building a house. Like HTML is the structure, CSS is like the walls and the design. You get the metaphor. Everyone's heard it before. So we're going to kind of take some of the top design trends of 2021, and then we're just going to see how it relates to web design. So we'll start with the first one, and then I'll get Mustafa's take as well. So one of the top trends right now is brightening up spaces. No surprise, millennials love the whites. Painting walls white to bring in natural light. This is really no surprise. This also means like maximizing natural light makes it feel more homey and welcoming. So that's the interior design trend. When I hear that interior design trend, the first thing I think of is like Apple's website. I think of like a massive amount of white space, very visual, high quality windows of products that we're looking into that are very vibrant and welcoming. So if I was to pick one company or example that matches this interior design trend, I think Apple. Is there any sites that you think, Mustafa, reflect this physical idea of having a lot of natural light white space to draw people to products or services?
I think IKEA probably. I mean, as soon as you start talking, the thing is, when you start talking about interior design, the first one's IKEA, and we've mentioned IKEA as being like one of those magical companies, which they're a design company through and through, right? And everything about their design culture is so strong, and it's just such a well-made service design company, like technology, whatever. So IKEA's white spaces is great. The thing is, it's like, this is more of a bias of me, and I've noticed in designs I've done recently where the feedback I always get in my design is, Mustafa, can you make things slightly smaller? Because I make things so big. Because white space, I just think, let's just fill it all. So, yeah, but I think there's like, again, it's all contrast, right? Like design is all contrast. So the white space is deliberately there so you can focus on the element or the product in the center. And it's to highlight that. But again, I like things really big and bold. Which I think maybe, I've been told, it may be tied.
You can disagree with the trend too. Like,
no.
Just like the other thing is that a lot of people hate these interior design trends because they're like, it's so minimal and boring and I don't want to see another farmhouse design. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think there's a little bit of that. You don't have, like, some people, like, sometimes I go to a website and I'm like, this is so boring that it's like, I feel like I've seen this copy and pasted a million times.
Here's the thing, yeah. And this is like heresy. And I know this is heresy. Like, someone posted like Didier Rams, the famous designer who Jonathan Ive looks up to. And the whole world looks up to. And there's like his documentary, I think for his like birthday, they released his documentary of his life and his work. And I got to 10 minutes and I was like, it was all white rooms and, that weird music where it's just like sort of single tones for like 30 seconds, It's supposed to be like the pondering design. Oh, this is so boring. I'm not supposed to say that. This is a famous designer. I was like, God, like, can't you just say something rather than, design is like eating a sandwich. You have to select the succulent carrots. I'm like, what? No, it's not. Design is like, Figma's crashed again.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's literally, or like, send me version final _ V2.
Yeah.
It's like the same. So let me ask you this. I think IKEA is a good example for like minimal. Do you like that trend? Do you like when there's a lot of like negative and white space, or are you, because there is another the web design trend called like maximalism, which is like how much stuff can you jam in and maximize like one page?
Yeah.
Which, is a little overwhelming to me. But I get wanting to stand out and be different.
I mean, if you remember, like a few episodes back, we were doing the design reviews, Wax Poetics, and their thing was like everything was very large and big and in your face. Again, it's like there's the visual design element here, and there's also the UX design element. Like when you go to IKEA's site, what are you focused on? You're focused on, I need to get some cupboards, and can I find it, and is it cheap enough, and can I do a comparison between, if I'm not 100% sure, can I do a comparison? And like there's different types of customers as well, where some customers they want, they know exactly what they want, but they just need to find the color and the tone. And so there's so many different chats. So there's the actual usability side of, am I able to get through this? And then there's the side of, can I appreciate this site as a site? And I suppose a lot of it comes back to, where I more appreciate sites for their visual design was back in the Flash days. And so there's a website which is basically the history of design. And so I was going through it and finding all these old Flash websites, which I used to love. And they had a lot of white space where you have this character in the middle animated, and it's all motion. And it's like, it's not just the white space, it's the combination of the white space, the color, the motion, the transitions, working together in unison. And so when you're looking at it as a piece of entertainment, I think it's much more interesting. When it's usability, like Amazon is not known for white space, but for the chaos that it seems to be, it's quite usable. Do you know what I mean? Which is where Apple's site, when I was buying a laptop recently, and because I'm cheap, I was going through the refurbished ones, and the usability of that is terrible. Because you're basically switching off settings, and the filters don't update and stuff like that. Just annoys the hell out of me. But I mean, again, I think interior design is, because it's the physical world. You're there to enjoy it, and also part of it's to show off when you have guests. Oh, look at I'm cultured. Look at my white walls.
Right? No, right. I mean, it's like you're also projecting. But if you think about it, interior design in a lot of ways is like you're projecting your personal brand. So like if your house was your website, you're projecting your stylistic brand, or it's a combination of you and your partners. Like, it's almost like two companies that merge. Right?
It merged? You mean it was for me? It was a takeover, man.
Well, sometimes the ideas can really play well together because you have two people that have similar styles. Other times it's a little bit more contrasting, but I think what I'm getting at is that there's actually a lot of parallels here, and one of the ones that I think is really interesting, that during the COVID and the pandemic, this idea of embracing flexible spaces is becoming very popular. So new and remodeled homes, often a home office, they have a flex option. For I think the best ones new builders. If you look at new construction houses, they're building kitchens that are virtual for schoolwork, crafting, a home office. So you're having these spaces that can function a lot of different ways, because it's reflecting the way that people are living their lives. There's parents that are jumping from work calls to teach their kid homework. I mean, you know this better than anyone as someone that's been working full time and has homeschooling kids. I guess it's that idea of making websites flexible, I think is interesting. This is probably a stretch, but I kind of think this is similar to of a progressive web app in a way, where you're building one experience that works across devices. It's flexible in that regardless of where you have it, it has a consistently good experience. So that's why I think that if there's a way to tie flexible home designs into web design, I see that as the rise of progressive web apps and why PWAs continue to be.
Well, I mean, so it's
is that a reach?
No, I think so. The trend is spaces which can be customized to fit the needs of the moment rather than being a fixed thing, right? That's kind of it. So progressive web design, responsive web design. Basically, it comes from architecture anyway. It's having buildings that can change shapes, and because we were influenced by graphic design, it's very fixed. Pixel, fixed centimeter, millimeter, medium, and so responsive web design was all about the system accommodates for the different screens that it's in. So I mean that's 100% true, and I think especially in large cities where space is a premium, SF, like you could buy a shed for like 1 million because there's nothing, whatever. There's a huge requirement to customize the space as much as possible. Although things may be changing slightly now that I think the world is going to move away from focused on like these big cities when like have different hubs.
Yep.
But then at the same time, people's home spaces have to be customizable for this. So the furniture you'll start seeing is a bit more interesting.
Yeah, like you've seen the furniture that pops up everywhere now where it's like, it's a table, but then the table turns into 4 chairs, and the 4 chairs can be like moved in different ways. So it's like, it's not just like the home itself, but the furniture that's in the room is also flexible for different needs and different situations. So I actually love that. I love that people like a lot of these furniture companies. They're like, I think of what am I thinking of? It's like the brand that's like
Transformers, but for furniture.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very common in Turkish culture. Like every sofa can turn into a bed, because it's the idea is that you're so like you try to accommodate for guests as much as possible, and you're so inviting. Yeah. When we were buying furniture, every sofa has to turn into a bed, because someone might come round and they can't travel back home, and so you're accommodating for them. And like Ottoman furniture where the beds can open up and there's like storage inside of them, and like storage is hidden. That's a very common thing in Turkish culture. Like you'll see a chair and then you open the chair itself, and there's like, it's basically like the kids' toys, because that's basically where you're storing everything. So I mean, I see that, and obviously it's like custom. Like, so that's the interesting thing about our home is, my wife is very good when it comes to designing and crafting stuff, and so she likes designing things in such a way where there's so much space to store stuff, but you'd never see it in public. So it's like things like collapse and are hidden. So the house looks very minimalistic in some respects, but then you open up a drawer and suddenly there's so much stuff going on inside. But yes, I would say that responsive web design, responsive spaces, that does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a trend that's been around forever, but yeah. So let's move on. Last one that I wanted to run by you. So another very popular trend, 2021 trend, that's again, I think a result of the previous year, is adding quiet zones. So with activity buzzing throughout the home because people are home more, a quiet area to unwind after a long day or simply unplug from devices and screens is a very sought after feature. So basically, I think of it a screenless room. Our kids are on devices because parents are multitasking. And I think this adding an idea of quiet zones is not just a website or a web design trend. It's also just like a technology and like that's the way where companies are moving, right? Where this idea of digital wellness and caring about screen time and making, so you're not just in these endless swipes of TikTok and Instagram, but you're actually having thoughtful experiences and you're allocating your time between apps and in web time and all that kind of stuff. So this one for me is like very clear. Like adding quiet zones in a house sounds amazing. Like sometimes a lot of people are watching TV to decompress, but sometimes we have a back patio that I just love sitting out on. It's like outside. We have some plants and gardens, and it's a very place just to kind of unplug. So I totally subscribe to this, and I love that more companies are starting to give more thought to digital wellness as well. What are your thoughts here? Do you think this is this another reach by?
No. I think. Well, I mean, I was trying to just before you said the last bit, I was thinking, when do products have if you're in a checkout flow, is there like a quiet zone? Okay, you're almost finished. How about you contemplate the meaning of life before you click buy?
Well, no, it's also what if they were like, do you really need this product? Do you really need this? Instagram ad that you clicked on and you're buying spontaneously. They would never do that, right? Because they need.
No, I mean you might you might do the opposite. The reason why you need this is because we're, fair trade or something like that. So you're highlighting, right? You're highlighting the social element. But digital wellness, I think operating systems are doing this more than anyone else, where they'll tell you how long you've been using an app this week, or
Yeah, I think Android and iOS
Yeah.
are doing a great job of that.
Changing the screen color, like so that because I think blues is it blue? The blue color like keeps you awake and disrupts your sleep. So
Yeah, they take out the blue screens at
yeah,
night.
this is the
It kind of turns off. I have that on, so at like 9 p.m. it'll shut down the color, and it actually makes it less appealing to actually look at the screen because it's like almost dim.
yeah.
So it's easier on the eyes, and it's like there's a lot of like benefits to that. But I think that's great. Like we never had that before, so any progress in this world, like in that direction, I think is a good thing. And I also love the idea too that you brought up of like companies and websites are separating themselves for this idea of like social good. Like this is free trade, organic, like all these other like
Well, like if you're buying something, it's like, would you like to donate 10% to like 10p or to whatever 10 cents to planting trees or something, like because of the packaging that you're using or the fact that you're recyclable things, or would you here's an environmentally friendly alternative to what you're about to purchase. I think those things again. It's like being cognizant of the waste, or perhaps even offering second-hand versions of the things that you're buying, so you're not just buying brand new things all the time. But yeah, no, in terms of the contemplating spaces, I mean that's really important. I mean, I think it's well known that you need just headspace, like to contemplate every single day, like whether it's meditation or prayer or a sports activity or whatever. When before the gyms, I mean they're not they're open now in London anyway. Going swimming at night was my thing because that's completely disconnected. You can't take your device.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I remember just diving underwater and all you can hear is just the sound of water. That was so amazing. Like just it's like the water's almost massaging your body as you're trying. Well, I swim terribly, but like it's just that kind of complete disconnect, and you're in the elements, right? It's just the water in you and your ability to try and stay alive. if you're a rubbish swimmer like me, it's just like, oh god, this is so poetic. I could be drowning.
that was like so beautiful, and then you're like, it took a dark turn, and, you're like, and then I struggle for my life because I realized I don't know how to swim.
But the amazing thing there is, like, again, it's like I think John Cleese, the Monty Python, he's done a lot of talks on creativity, and again, I've mentioned this before. I think he talked about Thomas Edison used to do this thing where he'd be sitting in a room like complete silence, and then he'd have the two metal balls in his hand and a metal plate on the floor, and he'd kind of go into that drifting zone, and just as he was drifting off, obviously his hands would release, the balls hit, it would wake him up, and in that kind of in between sleep and awake state was where he found the most creative ideas came from, because you're completely freeing your mind of everything out there. So
that's so cool. Yeah, I totally get that. You ever right before you fall asleep, you come up with like an idea from something during your day and you want to like write it down on a piece of paper? I used to. I don't do it as much, but I used to just have like a notepad and pen, because I don't know why, but what you're saying like resonates with me so much, because I used to just like whenever I was like fully, like the noise of the day and your mind can finally just like kind of slowly rest, then an idea would pop in my head. I'm like, that is such a good idea, of like an idea or something I was tinkering with earlier in the day or the week. But
would John Cleese used to say like he'd write a script and then throw it away, and then the next day, or he'd sleep and wake up and he'd try to rewrite it, and whatever he'd write would be so much better because he'd be focusing on the most important things of that script. So it's like the idea is the first thing you design isn't necessarily the best path to go down. And when you can't think of a problem, the best thing to do is just to walk away and have a sleep, or go out with friends, or just do something that's completely disconnected. So I think, that kind of not getting stuck in this sort of like designer's block is usually that. You just need a break and a rest. And that's just a normal part of the creative process. So again, me being the dark, bleak one, as you're talking about writing notes, I can imagine if I had written that, got all these amazing ideas, I wake up the next morning and read what I read, like it'd be something like, "Don't trust the ducks; they're all spies." Really random like that.
Yeah, that's funny. A little bit more cynical approach, but I think that's that's why it's a good balance. Yeah, but I think this episode might be a stretch for our listeners, but I think there's a lot here. If you're an interior designer, like, come on Design Huddle. Let's talk. Like I think something that we want to do for our guests in future episodes is like Design Huddle started because we both love design. We talk a lot about UX, as you know, but we're going to start interviewing people from a ton of different disciplines. So if you're one of those people that's just interested in other design areas, reach out to us, DM us, tweet at us. We're happy to have you on. Any closing thoughts, Mustafa, before we end the episode, our most famous episode of making parallels between interior design trends and web design trends?
No, I think it's much more interesting as designers to look outside of your design discipline and looking at how other designers try to solve problems. So architects of the past, how they've designed things. Because architects, they see themselves as sculptors of light, because how they position windows will light the spaces, and how you guide someone around a building with stairs and you point things out. And again, these are like basically the equivalent of our buttons or call to actions, right? And I think it's quite inspiring how other design disciplines take this. Like, if you think about the notion of going through an app or a site laterally, like just thinking, what is it? You're guiding a person, and you think, okay, guiding a person. How does a fashion designer guide a person to wear a jumper? Like, what's the things that they're doing? Are there cues, the buttons, where they're placed or whatever? Or in architecture or garden design, and I think those things are much more interesting, because then you can start thinking about how you can emphasize those things to make your design successful. So yeah, and I think you can.
That's beautiful. We're gonna print that on a T-shirt.
What the ducks looking to get us?
That's such a we should get like you're like a cartoonist. You should draw that. I want to see it next episode. I want to see the mock-up for the T-shirts of the duck spot.
Yeah, and then Mustafa's taken away because he needs help. So yeah, we'll be looking for a new co-host of Design Huddle when I get.
Yeah, so this is also like, send me resumes too, because I'm looking for someone else to run Design Huddle with. Awesome. Well, let's wrap here before we go down any more rabbit holes. Thanks, Mustafa, for hanging with me as I really wanted to talk about interior design, because I'm doing it. Shout out to our partners, our wives, for crushing it and being awesome interior designers.
And shout out to our kids for ruining everything with crayons.
Yeah, that's like a little too real. All right, cool. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Design Huddle. If you haven't done so, please make sure you subscribe, and we will catch you on the next episode. Peace. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Design Huddle. The opinions expressed are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of our employer.